Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Thomas Van Kampen once again, and happy Easter. I'm not sure how relevant that'll be by the time everybody's watching this, because I don't know when I'll get a chance to upload this quite yet. But as I'm recording this right now, it's the day before Easter, so I thought I'd get this out. I hope everybody has a great time hanging out with family, eating good food, overdosing on chocolate eggs, all the good Easter stuff. And, for those who live religious lives, I hope they have a good time, celebrating the death and resurrection of Christ, stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. I just hope everyone has a good time. So, yeah. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, when I left off, I was making a background for this animation you see here. I finished the background up and I added a waterfall. And now what I'm doing is, when I was working off camera, I integrated a little bit of a cliff you see here, and I animated a wireframe of a guy climbing over it. So I put in all the movements, I put in all the keyframes for the wireframe and stuff like that, and now I'm giving him the actual model, as you can see here. And I know I've said this a couple of times before, but I'm going to reiterate again in case you missed the past episodes. My idea is he's going to be climbing up the cliff from the perspective of on top of the grass and stuff like that. And then when he looks up, there's going to be like a 180 shot of him turning around and seeing the landscape. And the background that I have behind him is going to scroll past him. It's going to zoom in at first, and then it's going to zoom out to like the waterfall bit. And I tested it out a couple of times off camera to make sure the perspective worked and everything. And I think this is going to turn out really well by the end of it. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think this one's going to be really beautiful by the time I'm done. A little more on the cartoony side than I would have liked, but you know what? I think its style suits its purposes just fine. So, yeah, that's pretty well it. And this is March 26th that I'm recording on, obviously. I just said it's the day before Easter. And I said in a couple of episodes ago that this will be the day in which the Toons software, the software used for a bunch of Studio Ghibli movies as well as Futurama, will become free and open source. Now, I've admittedly been having a struggle trying to find the link to the download thing. I tried looking it up a couple of times before I started recording this, and for whatever reason, I'm having troubles finding the actual download link. Somebody in my comment section has actually found it, apparently. I asked them to message me the link so I can put it in the descriptions of these videos. So I'll do that when I can. Just bear with me on that. But yeah, point being, this is the day where the Studio Ghibli software Toons becomes free and open source, so that's really exciting. And main reason I wanted to bring that up is because I wanted to talk about Studio Ghibli in general for this episode. Obviously, if you're any fan of animation, you have to check out Studio Ghibli's movies at some point. They're critically acclaimed, they're phenomenal work, they have gorgeous animation with the most subtle of details being portrayed and human characteristics and stuff like that. That said, I'm about to lose all credibility as an animator in the following statement, but here it goes. Are you guys ready? Because you're gonna lose a ton of respect for me. It wasn't until recently that I actually saw a Studio Ghibli movie. Like, I've been trying to do animation for a couple of years now. I've gotten a decent amount of content. I've shown an appreciation for it. But it wasn't until recently that I've actually seen a Studio Ghibli film. And, as shocking as that is, and, it's a common thing to go like, what? You haven't seen this? You haven't seen that? What kind of rock have you been living under? How could you not have been exposed to this? Because in their mind, it's everywhere, right? But I feel like the reality is that everybody has a quote-unquote classic movie that they haven't seen. I think you could be the biggest film buff in the world, but obviously, like, nobody could have seen everything. you like a lot of people commit a whole ton of time to seeing as much things as possible, which is good. You should watch a lot of stuff, and because they teach you a lot of things, and you start adapting it into your own work. But that said, you should also, if you're serious about being an artist, you should also give a lot of time to actually making things. And actually making things is what I've been dedicating most of my time to. I've been a little more lenient the past few days. I've been playing some more games, and like I said before, I have checked out some Studio Ghibli movies recently. Because a good friend of mine, I told him about that. He naturally reacted in the same way I'm expecting all of you to. And he was kind enough to lend me I think it's the complete works of Studio Ghibli on DVD. Maybe there's a couple of movies missing in there or something. But point being, it's a huge collection of Studio Ghibli films, and he also lent me Akira, which I'm thankful for, and I'll be checking that out too when I can. But thus far, I've checked out 3 Studio Ghibli movies, and I'll talk about them right now. I've seen Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, and Princess Mononoke. And of the 3, Princess Mononoke is my favorite, but I'll get to that when I get to that. I'll talk about them in order of when I saw them. Now, Spirited Away was the first one I watched because, I heard it was considered to be the greatest animated movie of all time, so I was like, oh, well, naturally, I have to check this thing out. And what I'm about to say doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but I actually remember seeing bits and pieces of not Princess Mononoke, of Spirited Away at my brother's house because he put it on for his kids. And I was a pretty young guy, and I was pretty ignorant too. Main reason why it took me so long to get into Japanese animation in general was because I was really ignorant as a kid. I just didn't understand it, like the cultural differences and like the were a little too jarring for me to get by because I just didn't understand where all these inspirations were coming from. I should have been more embracive of the fantastical ideas, but I don't know. I was just in a phase where I was just like, if it's weird, it's bad, which is not a good phase to be in. I was one ignorant friggin' kid, and I super regret it. But yeah, I remember seeing bits and pieces of Spirited Away at my brother's house. And at the time, I didn't know what to think of it. I thought it was really weird. I didn't understand what was happening because I only saw bits and pieces. I didn't get the whole story. And so I didn't have any idea what was going on. But what I will say is that while I didn't know what was going on, I didn't forget it. All the images that I saw, they stuck out in my mind from there on out. And every time I saw, pictures of it online or something like that, I would be like, oh yeah, I remember this movie. So yeah, eventually I got out of my stupid little ignorant bubble and I checked it out, and it was really good. It was I like to call it Japanese Alice in Wonderland because that's essentially what it is. It's just this fantastical story about this little girl trying to survive in sort of this crazy, uber imaginative world where not everyone can be trusted, and oftentimes people are trying to kill her and stuff like that. And it very is much like a surreal dream. So I like to call it Japanese Alice in Wonderland. And yeah, I really do. I really like the animation in it. I think it has phenomenal work in it, and I love how imaginative it is. I'm not going to lie though. While I appreciate it and like it for those qualities, it didn't really make a personal connection with me, and I'll explain why. I feel like while there are really good movies out there that everybody loves and it's critically acclaimed, it's by popular consensus, everybody loves it. I feel like that's different. Like that kind of appreciation for a movie is different from having a personal connection with a movie. A personal connection with a movie has to kind of make you put yourself in the position of the main character. And even though that's why so many people identify with A Spirited Away, because they can identify with this little girl trying so hard to survive in this world, and they identify with her growing up over time and being more accustomed to it. I'm not really the adventurous type. I never really was. And so I was like, I'm going to sit back and enjoy this wonderful animation, and I'm going to enjoy the creativity. But I didn't identify with the main character too much, and that's just the honest truth. So yeah, I really appreciate it, but I don't think I got nearly as much out of it as most people have. Okay, so after that, I watched My Neighbor Totoro because it was a long day at work, I think, or something like that. And I was like, all right, I have a couple of days off after this. I'm just going to chill out, and I'm going to put on a movie that doesn't require me to think. And that's what I thought My Neighbor Totoro would be. I thought it would be like a really chill movie where just stuff happens and it's all happy and stuff. And, I thought it would be, I like to say Japanese equivalent of like, insert Disney title here a lot, so be prepared for that. I thought it would be like Japanese Winnie the Pooh, in that it would just be about cute characters doing cute things and no real conflict going on. And for a while it seemed like I was right, and I really enjoy the backgrounds in this one, by the way. And once again, the human behavior is fantastic. And for a while, it did seem like that kind of movie where it just seems very chill and relaxing. That is, except for the mother's in the hospital subplot. That made me like really frustrated at the movie the whole time, because they kept tempting the idea of the mother possibly dying in the hospital, and it does have like that internal conflict, and the climax has something to do with that, where the girls are trying to rush to the hospital in order to see their mom and make her feel better. And the whole time I'm just sitting there going like, you better not kill the mom. Don't you dare kill the mom. I will hate this movie if it kills the mom. I did not want it to pull a Bambi on my ass. Yeah, like I was not prepared for that level of drama, and it made me like really sad, even though nothing really happens. It's like it's a cute movie, and like nothing really terrible happens. I'm not sure if I'm spoiling it or whatever. So yeah, I was like really frustrated at this movie because I just wanted to chill out and I didn't want to think too hard about real dilemmas. But then it throws in this subplot of the mother almost dying, and I'm just like, damn it, I want to chill out. I don't want to be sad. But yeah, Studio Ghibli movies, they're kind of like that though. Even in the most chill, carefree of films, there's usually something that'll make you feel sad for a bit. Yeah, so that's what I thought of My Neighbor Totoro. And then lastly, and also my favorite of the three, is Princess Mononoke. Remember before when I was talking about Spirited Away, how I didn't make quite a personal connection with the movie just because I wasn't really the adventurous type, and I didn't really identify too much with the girl's dilemma or stuff like that? Princess Mononoke is different. This is the one I made a personal connection to, mainly in the main character. I don't remember any of these people's names. I never remember names in movies, but regardless. I love this guy who is trying to solve this great big conflict between man and nature, and all the while he's being consumed by a demon, and in order to repress the demon, he has to view everyone with non-hateful eyes. He can't take a side no matter what. He has to sort of find the middle ground and see good in everybody, and he has to save people regardless of what terrible thing they're doing. And yeah, I really like that dynamic, because like it's while I don't identify with being too adventurous, I do identify with struggling in finding the right thing to do. I do identify with trying to be patient with people and trying to control my anger at people. And I do identify with having this part of me that like kind of really acts up, like it gets really enraged. I feel like everybody identifies with that, and it really capitalizes on that. And I like everything about this kid. He's a very honorable, sweet kid who's always just trying to make out to do the right thing. And he does show that he has flaws. Obviously, he does get the demon. He does let the demon get to him every once in a while. Like that part where he finds out that the woman with all the guns in Irontown and stuff like that, she's the reason why that boar was consumed by a demon and stuff like that. And you see the demon in his arm take over, where he's almost pulls out his sword and is like really close to killing her. I really like that scene. And I have to say, like, this should come to no surprise, really, but this is the most gruesome of the 3 movies I've seen so far. I was not expecting this kind of gore. It's not too grotesque. It's not too out there. Like it does feature like severed limbs and stuff like that, but it doesn't like spout blood all over the place. It doesn't show anything like intestines or anything like that. It's just severed limbs, and for whatever reason they don't really bleed, but whatever. And it shows some really gruesome stuff. Like, the creepiest stuff in this movie is by far, like, the wormy demon taking over a host and stuff like that. Like that part where the blind boar is being taken over by a demon, and Princess Mononoke is stuck in there, and, like, she's becoming a demon too, and she's like, no, I don't want to become a demon. I was just like, holy crap, like, this is some gruesome stuff. And like, it has like this really dramatic choir music accompanying it and stuff like that. Like, man, this movie gets really epic really fast. And what's cool about the movie is that it has no clear villain. It shows like biases and consequences of both sides. It shows flaws in both sides, and it shows like a lot of movies with environmental messages. It glorifies nature most of the time, while it demonizes man. Which, you know, why are you trying to convince people to join your side on a cause when all the time you're bashing them and saying like they're irredeemable monsters? Like, how do you expect to convince people to join your side that way? But yeah, the movie kind of shows a lot about like biases and like demonizing the other side and stuff like that. And all these things. And meanwhile, the main character is the guy who's trying to see good in everyone. And I really like that dynamic. It's like, even when it seems like there's going to be a clear antagonist, there's not really one. You'd think the woman would be the clear antagonist, like the governor of Irontown, because she's doing all these terrible things to the forest. But she is shown to do good things. She gives men and women work. She provides work and shelter and food for lepers. She does all these things to help her people because her people are her priority. And she's not a dishonorable woman. She just goes too far with an extreme. And she tries to justify her actions all the way through. And Princess Mononoke is the same way, where she definitely shows good qualities, but she goes too far with her mission to kill the humans and stuff like that. And she constantly tries to justify her attitude towards humans and all these things. But yeah. Honestly, my biggest problem with the movie is Princess Mononoke herself. She really frustrates me, mainly because, much like The Legend of Zelda, the actual princess that the movie is named after, she actually accomplishes way less than the actual main character. She actually feeds the conflict. She has to be rescued and stuff like that. And she does save the guy every once in a while. Like, she chewed that food for him and stuff like that. But most of the time, like, she's adding to the conflict. Most of the time, she needs to be saved and stuff like that. And when she tries to accomplish something, she fails. And by the end of it, she doesn't learn anything. She doesn't learn to forgive. She outright says, I can't forgive the humans. And the guy's just like, I understand. And I'm like, what? Come on, like, if you're going to have a character be like this the whole time and you have this giant lesson to learn, like literally everybody in this movie learns their lesson except for her. Like the lady who built Irontown, she's like, we're going to build a better Irontown. And the guy who tries to steal the decapitated head of the forest spirit, he's like, well, you can't win everything, I guess. Like, literally everybody learned something in this movie except for the title character, and that really pisses me off. Because it's like, why name the movie after her? Like, why couldn't this movie be called Prince whatever his name is? Again, I don't remember the actual names of these characters, so yeah, anybody who's listening to this and have seen the movie, they know who I'm talking about when I talk about this stuff. But yeah, like, this is my major flaw with the movie. Like, Princess Mononoke is not that great. She doesn't learn anything. She actively contributes to the conflict that the actual main character is trying to prevent, and all this stuff. And I don't know. She's the weakest part of the movie in my opinion. But otherwise, it's a great movie. It's super epic. It has phenomenal animation. Like, it's Studio Ghibli. Of course it's going to have phenomenal animation. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I'm going to cover for this episode. Thank you guys for joining me once again. Again, I'll say Happy Easter. I'm going to continue working on this, and I hope you'll join me for the next video. Okay, see you later.